Thank you very much, Sjokz. I'm Medic. I'm joined by Vedius. We're here for the first two games of the day, almost at the halfway mark of the season, everyone. And with both these teams sitting at negative win-loss, I'm sure they will both want to pick up a win in this match.
Now, Medic, I know that you have done your due diligence when it comes to
I do my research.
statistics.
Statistics.
And I know that you have some informative stats relating to win rates and results when it comes to playoffs. Why don't you hit the viewers with them?
See, I think you picked this up much more than it was going to be.
I'm very excited. Please.
Okay, only one team in the last 3 years of the LEC has had less or two or less than that. Oh, wow, this is the worst.
Oh, my word. This was your moment, Medic!
Okay, we'll try. Only one team at the halfway mark of a season has had 2 or less wins and still made it into playoffs. Who was it, Vedius?
It was Schalke.
Of course it was! Schalke's miracle run, both of these teams looking to try and make it into playoffs. Vitality especially sitting at only 1 win. Only 2 other teams have had 3 wins at the halfway mark, Fnatic and H2K. Can these teams replicate it? We'll see as we get on into Champion Select. Yeah, so I think I noticed in that last sort of phrase where the Red Bull kicked it. It was after like 3 sentences, but we got there in the end, Vedius. We are locked in and ready for some action. Vitality going to ban out Kai'Sa and the Twisted Bait here on the blue side. Udyr removed by SK.
Ooh, and we get my favorite champion select music of the day too. What better way to start the day than with a bit of aggression already banned out? Those comps that LS loves already being removed with the Kai'Sa, Twisted Fate, and Udyr. Let's see if we'll see things like the Olaf and Renekton. No, we're actually going to see the GP removed from Szygenda. I wonder what else we'll see taken off the board. Lillia right now is considered the strongest go-to jungler in the meta with so many others nerfed. I think that was an interesting stat where Lillia is yet to be nerfed. Like, she has had very few changes across being introduced into the game. And in the pro scene, ever since that she was introduced, she's kind of seen varying levels of priority, but right now she's definitely considered the strongest. And right now she has been left up. So if I'm Vitality, I'm looking at that Lillia, maybe even the Kai'Sa as well, depending on their preference.
That's the thing, you usually have these trades on the first few rotations. Very difficult as a red side team to get everything you want or to remove all of the powerful picks in the first ban phase. So you usually leave something up alongside something that you want to pick. Kai'Sa, Lillia, those key targets usually. See the Kai'Sa picked up by Vitality, and now SK have their option to go towards that Lillia.
The Azir, maybe, or something that we've often seen with a high priority on the mid laner. But there will be the Lillia, so nothing too surprising. I'm not sure I really deserve credit for that one. But Azir is kind of what we think about as well. What I've been really interested in is the recent increase in Ryze priority. We saw Caps blind picking it yesterday. Jesu was playing it over in the LCS to Renekton. So, still very popular here in Europe, of course. I personally don't hate the pick. I think that when it comes to blind picks, it offers a relatively safe blind because there are very few matchups that can really shut down a Renekton. Gnar was considered a counter pick, but honestly, I don't think it's one of the strongest. And we can see the response from Vitality. They're going to get themselves the Olaf and the Gragas. Very reminiscent of what we were seeing on the last patch. I'm not sure how convinced I am on Olaf. Of course, we did see some great performances from him yesterday. But will we see that again from Vitality today? Because they're in much need of a win, as we were talking about their hopes of playoffs slowly starting to dwindle as they continue to rack up those losses.
Okay, Jesu deciding to lock in his Vayne. Now, was very well known for the Vayne in the LFL. Is a pocket pick of his alongside the Kai'Sa. So for the player, it's not too surprising. But still, whenever I see a Vayne when things like the Jhin are still up, it's a little bit of a shock.
We have seen a few people use it as an answer to the Kai'Sa. I remember Kobe being one person that also brought it out. And I've seen it across the world, actually. I think over in the LCK, I've seen it a couple times too. But I think Vayne as a champion is one of the few that can scale just as well as Kai'Sa, has her own self-peel, and won't be punished in lane by the Kai'Sa, which is often one of Vayne's biggest struggles. Against a champion like Olaf as well, she does extremely well against. Her ability to kite and keep him at arm's length is something that the Olaf will very much struggle with, and as long as the Vayne is on her toes and saves her condemn for someone like the Gragas, the flash body slam is the only real thing she has to be afraid of, which means that right now with what Vitality has, I'm quite a fan of this Vayne pick. What does surprise me is that Azir has made it this far through in the draft and has not yet been picked up, which makes me wonder if Vitality will choose to ban it away, whether SK will look to lock it in right now, or whether both these teams potentially have an answer for it and they're waiting for the opposition to lock it in.
I'm wondering if SK want to go for, I was about to say the Leona, that has been banned away from them, but it would have given them that long range
Are there any
initiation
supports left, Medic?
I mean, Rakan.
Tom Kench?
Yeah, let's never bench the Kench. Like, keep that frog well and truly sat down on
Maybe
a bench.
range support, Seraphine?
Yeah, I mean, Seraphine's available, Lulu's available if you want to do the Lulu Vayne combo that we used to see quite a lot. There's the Rakan that we were talking about. The reason I like Rakan and why I thought of it next is because, firstly, champion's great. Secondly, long-range initiation or follow-up initiation is really good here for SK, and so having that Rakan who can dive in with the quickness just gives you that little bit more disruption at the start of a fight.
As we also talked about, Vayne is a champion that can provide a lot of her own peel thanks to her invisibility when combined with her ultimate. The low cooldown of the tumble, along with the condemn, makes her a very self-sufficient AD carry, so less reliant on a support to provide that huge amount of peel. We are going to see the Seraphine. We assume that this is, well, it could go mid, it could be support. So let's wait and see what the final pick is, which will give us a little bit more of an indication, unless it's Lulu, in which case it tells us nothing.
It's Azir. There it is. You were wondering where it was. Azir gets locked in. That will be mid lane. We assume, unless this Imperial mandate Azir has now made his way to support as well. But we'll see Labrov piloting Seraphine down towards the bottom lane. SK now have their opportunity to answer the Azir, and we'll see what they're looking for in mid themselves.
Well, Vitality's comp seems to do a bit of everything. I feel like that, kind of looking at it from the lens of LS, the Olaf thematically doesn't really fit in. You can see that there's a lot of long range. You kind of have dive elements, you have scaling elements, you have engage tools, you have disengage tools. Kind of Vitality's comp has a mixed match of everything, really. But I will say that, yes, they do have good scaling. They will be able to gain priority in both bot lane and mid lane early on into the game. The Gragas shouldn't really fear getting dived, so I think that they'll have the tools in order to help get them to the later stages, and Olaf can power farm, and with things like Gore Drinker, I think that even though it's nerfed, it still kind of does that role of helping some of these early game champions have a little bit of a stronger mid to late game with the amount of damage that they can soak up. The one thing I will say is SK's gone for a little bit more of a side lane split push comp. Ryze was a very old answer to Azir in that you could generate pressure in the mid lane matchup, but also you're much easier at roaming around the map, looking for fights, and in the 1v1 on a side lane, you just offer so much threat. You can also move the Vayne into a side lane as well, so I think we're in for an interesting one between Vitality and SK, a much needed win for both teams. Let's get into the action.
And on to Summoner's Rift we go. Always sort of like, you come up on this musical bed, it really hypes you up, and then no one does anything for the first 4 or 5 minutes of the game. Have to just bring that energy down a tad. I will note in the bottom lane, Labrov has gone for the heal here, alongside a cleanse for Crownshot, whereas Treatz is running Ignite, on this Rakan.
Okay, just a quick check, mate. Can you see this on your screen?
Yeah.
Excellent, great. Perfect. Right, let's get into the game. So we can see, as you rightly said, Seraphine running the heal to compensate for the lack of heal on Crownshot, but that cleanse likely to help with the sleep from the Lillia on top of the potential root. So there's a lot of single target CC and a couple charms thrown in there as well with the Rakan. So yeah, we talked a little bit about Vitality's comp, and as we mentioned, I think in the bot lane 2 versus 2, they should be able to get pressure, assuming that they don't look for the pull, and based on the fact that Olaf will be starting on the top side, means that he will be doing a solo clear is what I imagine, but Jezu and Treatz, they are actually going to be assisting their jungler by the looks of it, which means that they will be getting to lane late, which in this current meta means that you're almost always going to lose the push. So they've accepted this reality, and they're going to be on the back foot in the early early laning phase.
I mean, I'm pretty sure you're going to lose the push as Vayne, Rakan into Kai'Sa, Seraphine anyway. The high note, the Akathian Rain, Rakan not being the best laner in the world, and Jezu only having single target DPS makes it very difficult for you to gain any pressure, as we see Blue just chunking Milica out in the middle lane.
Meanwhile, as he rightly said, a bit of trading going back and forth between Ryze and Azir. From what my memory recalls of this matchup, normally Ryze can actually get the early push just because of how spammable he is with the E plus Q combo and how quickly you're able to clear out those waves. But I think it also is up to the Ryze player and how early champions like Azir get the level 2. But I haven't seen the matchup in a while, so I might be a little bit outdated in that. So we'll see how that mid lane prio progresses. But in the top lane, we very much expect that Renekton to have that push. So kind of SK have priority up towards the top side, which is also why you're seeing TynX path from bot towards top. Meanwhile, the opposite is true for the Olaf. So he's going to be path from top to bot, which means that both junglers should be relatively safe when it comes to securing that early Scuttle Crab and playing very safely. So I don't expect too much action, too much bloodshed within the first few minutes of the game.
Always sad to hear that, Vedius, but for the moment, both these teams very happy just to farm up and scale up as they can. Milica's burnt through 2 of his corrupting potions here in the mid lane. You can see Blue using that spell Flux just to try and get some extra damage down. Uses a potion of his own as well. Here comes the knock-up from Treatz. Going in there looking for Labrov, but he's going to heal himself up. Crownshot takes a tower shot, but with the little shield from Labrov, doesn't take too much damage.
So just a bit of trading going back and forth. Vitality, though, still with control of the bot side. Both junglers have now completed their full clear and are making their way on towards the Scuttle Crabs. And it looks like a bit of a cheetah recall coming out from Jenax up towards the top lane, but it will be interrupted there. I like that from Szygenda to try and make sure that that Renekton doesn't get to do what he wants in the 1v1 matchup, as Milica, starting with the corrupting pot, actually really helps him get that push, but now TynX coming to alleviate some of that pressure. I think Blue wants to go back to base. You notice that he doesn't have any health pots left. He has lost the sustain wart, so he wants to have this opportunity to push out the wave and reset, but Milica going to make that a little bit harder for him than he would like.
A bonus for Ryze, of course, is being able to get this tier early. Ever since the items were changed, you can get that stacking up as soon as you get on into the lane, instead of having to wait for, I think it was 750 gold in the past for that first item purchase. Blue will burn his teleport to get back into the lane. And I just want to set expectations for, you know, the next few minutes. As you said, Vedi, it seems like both teams are willing to stay away from each other, to not fight right now. But when we get towards those level 6s, that's when these Ryze and this Azir can really become impactful on the map.
They certainly can be. Well, I think Azir is just
yes. Right. I wanted to give Milica some opportunity to be impactful, but yes, Ryze is the one we're looking at. Yeah,
typically, but it depends where you can really play around, because we've seen teams try to dive Gragas with a Renekton before, and it's often not worked out. So the bot lane is really where I would say is actually the easiest place to attack. One of the biggest debates that many pro players have had for a very long time is range supports versus melee supports. And there are a number of different reasons as to why you pick one over the other. But one of the biggest things about range supports is that they're usually very easy to gank because they don't have mobility tools. They don't have that best of disengage tools, especially in the early laning phase. So when a Rakan is actually able to get that ultimate and of course has the knock-up, it's very easy to set up plays onto champions like the Seraphine, which is why if we were to see a play around that level 5 or 6 mark, bot lane would be where I expect it to occur, just to try and punish the fact that this Seraphine doesn't have those escape tools.
For the moment, Crownshot is winning out in that bot lane, about a 16 farm lead. There was a wave pushing in. We'll see how much of that wave Jezu can acquire for himself. And Crownshot had a relatively good performance on day 1. It definitely wasn't to the detriment of the team. However, the question is like how much he can continue to affect the game. Yesterday he was ahead at the 15-minute mark. He had quite a lot of jungle proximity, quite a lot of pressure from his jungler as opposed to the enemy jungler, but he wasn't putting out the damage that he would have liked on the Misfortune into Jhin matchup.
Certainly the case. I remember he was doing well in terms of the 2 versus 2, but also Vitality was struggling as they entered the mid game against Vitality, and it was that sneaky Baron where they really ended up kind of losing control. We'll see if Crownshot can make a difference here today, because this change was brought about to try and make a difference, to try and bounce back Vitality. But as you rightly said, just at the beginning of this cast, that a team, there's only been one team that has made it to the playoffs. It's difficult to say
it properly, okay?
There's only been one team that has made it to playoffs with a 1-win record at the halfway mark, and that was Schalke last year.
TP coming in behind here. Skeganda's in a really good position. Blue has to flash away. Treatz looking to dive in. The loading lullaby lands a double sleep. Battle dance out from Treatz. And all of SK will be able to retreat. This was a fight over a Scuttle Crab, Vedius.
It's important. Junglers really like those things. The biggest thing, though, was that Szygenda committed his TP, and Jenax did not. You could see that the wave was pushed under his tower, so he was holding the line, and he was waiting, wait, are we committing for this? And SK said, nope, we're just going to disengage. Let's not try and take a fight right now. It's definitely not worth it, especially against an Olaf. We don't want to run the risk, and we can just get some plates onto Jenax, so why not take that opportunity instead? And that's exactly what they're going to do.
And the question becomes, how much is that Scuttle Crab worth? Because you have a plate going over to the Renekton in the top lane. SK now have a TP advantage on Jenax over Szygenda, and we are getting towards, you know, those level 6s. Blue is at the point where he'll have his Realm Warp available, has already used it, though, to get back on into the lane, so won't be able to gank bot lane too easily as another wave pushes in here. This is a cannon minion wave that's going to be lost for Jezu, so that CS lead that Crownshot has started to develop is continuing to extend here, Vedius.
It certainly is. Kind of CS advantages in mid and top for SK, but small advantages in favor of Crownshot in the bot line. And, you know, when we look at these two teams, I'm not really surprised that we haven't seen a huge amount of bloodshed in the early game. Vitality not really known for their aggression. I believe that they actually have one of the average game times that we have here in the LEC. And SK, they've last week, we saw a little bit more of an aggressive style from them. They were going for very early game focused comps. They wanted to try and play around the top side of the map, and it seemed to me that that was their primary goal. And you look at this draft and you're thinking, okay, they're kind of sticking to that style of playing towards the top side of the map. We haven't seen any ganks just yet. We haven't seen any attempted dives, but this could be the first one. Nope, never mind. He's just warding.
His Realm Warp's still halfway off cooldown, so...
But even then, you don't necessarily need the Realm Warp to be able to set up a roam up towards the top side, but with this wave state in the top lane, I guess they don't want to risk it. You can see triple control wards layered throughout the bot side of SK's jungle. Oh, that is not ideal, this bot wave as well. But yes, so this was as a result of all the early skirmishing that was happening around the Scuttle Crab. But now the wave is in a bit of an awkward spot for SK. They need to be careful here because a jungle gank could come through. You can see this control ward in the tri-brush. Denying vision away from SK, and their junglers on the top side of the map right now. They need to push this wave, get it underneath the tower, otherwise that jungler's going to come.
Labrov's going to take quite a lot of damage here. Not yet level 6. Crownshot continues just to chip away at Jezu, and the wave is in such a bad spot.
Oh, he's taunting them. He knows.
That's so wide people happy right there from Crownshot.
But this is a very, very awkward spot for Jezu and Treatz. They needed to guide that last wave underneath the tower. And you could see how hard Crownshot and Labrov actually fought to keep the wave frozen here. This forces Treatz and Jezu to be overextended, and now they're going to see the Drake drop, and they're going to know that the jungler's on the bot side of the map, and they're like, we want to clear this wave, we want to break the freeze, but we cannot, because we do not have any jungle assistance. The TP from Jenax is up and available, so there is the potential for that play, as we see Milica with the ult in mid.
That's the opposite direction to your jungler, Milica.
Seems like it, yes. Perhaps it was just a disengage tool. I don't know.
Why would you engage and immediately disengage, Vedius? That doesn't make...
All I can say is, it was calculated.
Did the maths. I'm wondering if perhaps he got room prisoned in the middle of it as he tried to slide in, and thus just put it in the wrong direction. But we will find out another time. Goal pretty much even here between these two teams at the 10-minute mark, Vedius. There is a Rift Herald sitting on TynX, and we'll see where he decides to try and funnel some of that gold. Getting it in Jezu's back pocket might not be the worst of things, because he is falling further and further behind Crownshot here. TynX comes down to the bottom lane. The freeze has actually already been broken. TynX is just here to try and force Vitality away.
But at this point, the damage has been done.
Yep.
Crownshot, I don't expect it on his next base. Actually, can we have a quick look at the gold and see? He's sitting on 1,000, yeah, so he's not going to have enough
ahead,
to really bounce. He's not going to have enough to complete his first major item just yet, but as you rightly said, that is a very substantial lead. Already level 7 as well. The experience difference is one of the biggest things in my opinion. And yeah, like this would be around the time where we would expect some sort of gank, but you can see Lillia up towards the top side of the map right now. It feels like that this bot lane really doesn't get very much support from jungle, but we already talked about this, right? SK as a team usually leaves the bot side of the map to defend by itself, and they usually play through the top side. And that does mean trying to get advantages for Blue and Jenax, which will result in the Rift Herald being dropped in mid, trying to funnel a little bit more gold onto the Ryze.
And then the question is, how much can this Ryze use that extra gold to help out the struggling AD carry? Because at some point, you do need to make sure that Jezu is getting some gold. You need to make sure that he's not falling 40 CS behind and he's able to get towards those items, because otherwise these fights are going to happen. Realm Warp in, as Blue tries to get out, but the chase is still on. Undertow available for Skeanz. Continues to push forward. The Encore goes wide, but Skeanz just needs one axe to slay Blue and Vitality get their first kill of the game.
Okay, so Vitality, they're able to punish Blue after he pushes in mid by getting that priority, thinking that he has control, especially with his jungler there. But they didn't have vision on Skeanz, just running in through his half of the jungle, and they're able to lock him down. So well played by them. They will be able to, well, not really do anything to the gold lead. At the very least, they'll get a summoner spell out from Blue. What surprised me, though, was I thought that Blue's game plan here was to use his ultimate and then flash back into it. So here you can see he does have his flash, nice sidestep there, and I thought he would flash at this point, and then he would have actually got to safety, but he chose to hold his flash instead. So
well, he chose to hold it until he was in a very easy position for the rest of Vitality to chase him.
Yes. I don't know. You could see, I thought I saw what his logic was, and then he chose to flash later, and then he lost me. So I don't really have a good explanation for you. Yeah, so he ends up dying.
And now doesn't have flash, doesn't have teleport, and makes these next few fights just that little bit more difficult. Doesn't have the realm warp as well, still half the cooldown left on that. So we haven't been able to see that Ryze really unleashed, getting around the map and trying to influence the map. I will say TynX still unkilled at the 15-minute mark throughout the entirety of the LEC. We're almost halfway through. If we had a KDA King for 15 minutes, it would probably be TynX. Although he doesn't actually get involved in many kills either. So it could be possible his KDA is worse than someone who's died a lot of times just because they're getting more kills.
Perhaps. Or someone who has died very few. He may have 0, but I wonder how many have only 1 death at 15 minutes.
I'm going to have to do some research for this. You talk for the next 20 minutes.
For the next 20 minutes? That's how long it'll take you to find a single stat?
I have to search per game, per player at 15 minutes deaths.
You know we have a stats team, right?
Yeah, I know we do, but I don't want... This is a bad stat to request from Marcus. Marcus is better than this, Vedius. My name is not Quickshot. I don't go to him with just random stat requests.
Okay, fair enough.
Hey Marcus, can you can you look up how many players have died?
You gotta press the button.
No.
You gotta press the button.
Oh, that
he's pressed the. He's a bit damage coming down onto Crownshot. We'll use the ignite. Right now, guys, you don't know this, but Medic is using his special talk button to speak to the stats team. He's pretending that he's not, but he is. He's trying to look clever. Oh, hang on, hit the ult in the mid lane.
Oh, the ult in the mid lane as Blue uses the realm warp. Is he going to step back into it? He does, and he gets away! Like magic. It's a vanishing act. Blue is Houdini. He escapes in the mid lane. Abadarge has a 13 KDA at the 15-minute mark.
Oh, does he?
Wait.
He's still getting this stat.
I'm just finding out what TynX is.
Okay. Sitting here, baited.
so TynX actually has a lower KDA than Abadarge at 15 minutes, even though TynX hasn't died at the 15-minute mark.
There you go.
TynX's is 11.
That's still decent.
So technically it's infinite, because you divide by 0.
It's infinite.
Yeah.
So by the laws of math, TynX is the KDA king of 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Right, now, gank in the bot side of the map. TynX is here.
He's got 10 seconds to survive.
10 seconds.
Has been caught out. Still alive.
Seconds, yeah.
Its KDA will still be 11 in these next 5 seconds at the 15-minute mark.
I mean, even if he had died, it would have stayed at 11, no? That's how math works.
That is how maths work.
Correct. Yeah, as you can see, guys, not the most thrilling of early games.
I've enjoyed myself.
I mean, we're having a great time. The Infernal Drake is alive. Right now, both bot laners contesting for that main priority. And it looks like that with the initial push going over to SK, with that health sitting on Crownshot as well, he doesn't want to give it up.
Oh, TP Vedius.
Yes, here we go.
They're going to go in for Crownshot. One more auto attack will be enough. He gets healed with the stage presence. Not quite enough as Jesu takes the kill. TP's coming in from SK and Vitality. 3 players strong off towards the top side of this fight. SK have 5 in the river right now. Vitality are going to be forced away. It's only the second dragon of the game, and SK will claim it as their own.
Definitely a big mistake there from Crownshot. He didn't have great health or mana, and he just walks into the river. He knew that the rest of his team was collapsing, but he created a flank situation that actually made it very easy for SK to attack the weakest part of the flank. So they're able to collapse onto him, and they're able to get themselves a quick pick, and this will do wonders for Jesu, give him a little bit of experience back, get some gold into his back pocket as well. And I imagine that when he goes back to base, he will finally be able to complete his first item, which I imagine will be the Kraken Slayer. So very well played from SK. A really good punish, gets themselves the Drake, get themselves the first tower of the game, and very quickly they've been able to, at the 15-minute mark, kind of balloon this gold lead to 1.5k.
And it's those small little fights that can really start to snowball a game in your favor. Vitality will trade the Rift Herald for the Dragon that was taken by SK. But SK now have that Kraken Slayer already complete on Jezu. Blue has gone Liandry's Anguish first. Demonic Embrace first item here for TynX. We don't see that too often. Usually you see like a Zhonya's, or sometimes you also see the Moonstone Manure. But Demonic Embrace, the tick damage, can do quite a lot of work in these fights. And I guess against a Gragas, against an Olaf, you are just ticking them down slowly.
I'm a little surprised, because if you're going to rush anything, I'm not sure why you wouldn't just rush the Liandry's. But I'm wondering if this is new tech that I'm just unfamiliar with. From what I can gather, it doesn't seem to be. A lot of pros obviously do value it, as Blue forced to flash here at the risk of getting ulted on Szygenda. But yeah, I mean, a quick look online, it seems that many pros are, of course, buying Demonic Embrace as part of Lillia's build to give her that a damage. Of course, it synergizes very nicely with the Liandry's. Yep. It just surprises me that you wouldn't prioritize the Liandry's. The only reason I could imagine is that it does, of course, give you a bit of health early on. Perhaps he wants a little bit more survivability. But yeah, definitely a question worth asking junglers. But unfortunately, I can't ask him right now.
I mean, it does also give you 10 armor and magic resist if an enemy champion is affected, Vedius. So.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, it gives you a little bit more durability, right? A little bit more.
I'm just gonna be honest. 10 armor and magic resist does not feel like something worthwhile. It's like you shouldn't build into it just because of that. But TynX has decided Demonic Embrace is the way to go, and SK are 2,000 gold ahead because of some earlier fights. They've got 2 towers to their name as well, and I do just want to come back to the state of the league and where SK are sitting at the moment, Vedius. You can see actually on the outside of playoffs looking in with this 3-5 scoreline. A win here would put them up in towards that sort of middle of the pack area where XL, Schalke, Fnatic, Mad Lions are all very clumped up. It feels like it's going to be a very close end of the season when we get there.
Yeah, and SK, a lot of their losses, of course, what was interesting is their wins are often against the teams below them, and the losses are against the teams above them, which is the ideal situation that you kind of want to be, especially as a new roster, because you're sitting along that middle of the pack, and being able to get those wins kind of helps you contest for that like 6th playoff spot, which for a rookie team I think is definitely a great way to start off your kind of introduction into the league. But they really need to have those wins against a team like Vitality. When these teams are beneath you, dropping games here will make that playoff run that much harder.
Definitely does. Szygenda going in here with the turbo cam tank, just trying to force Jenax away as the Rift Herald comes down in the mid lane. No minions here mean that Vitality will back away from it, and the Herald will fall. Treatz dives in, hasn't popped the quickness yet, but there he goes, gets Labrov. Milica has a good position to put down an Emperor's Divide if he was chased into that choke point.
It does make me laugh that, like, every opportunity where we see, like, there could be a big fight, both teams kind of like use their ultimates as a sign of aggression, and then as they get close, we're gonna back off.
Have you seen the video online of 2 dogs on either side of a gate barking at each other? And then someone pulls the gate back and they just slowly both retreat away, and you put the gate back and they're like, woof, 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 woof. It's amazing. It's the best.
That is such...
That's these teams.
Yeah. I mean, again, they don't. I'm not criticizing them. You know, I'm not saying that they shouldn't do that. The fighting is what they should do in these situations, but it is entertaining to me when they just kind of square up at each other. They will use their ultimates and then they'll go, no, it's fine, we're going to back off. Of course, the next big point of contention will be this Drake spawning in 20 seconds, but now Jenax doesn't have his ultimate. Vitality have the prio in mid, and they have control over the river right now, so it seems unlikely that SK will be able to get anything. They do not have TP on blue. They're going to lose the mid tower. And I imagine this is just going to be a free Drake, which SK will have to give over for the time being. They could try to attack through the bot lane, but I think it's a little risky considering the position and vision that Vitality do have.
Yeah, it looks like Vitality should be able to take this one pretty cleanly. SK working their way up towards the Baron side of the map. I don't think they can do it with just these 3 champions, but they're trying to just gain control of the area. Mid-Prio was lost, though, as Vitality pushed out the wave. Squire's Bloom goes just a little bit wide of Treatz and Blue, as Blue now works his way up to top, has the Realm Warp, of course, and this is where we start to see that split push that you were talking about in pick and ban. Vedius. Blue just so good at being able to push out these waves and then get out with Realm Warp if he needs.
Yeah, SK really needed to fix this wave as well, because it's been stuck in a bit of an awkward position for a while. I would have liked to have seen SK actually kind of stay in the top side of the map. You can see that this Gromp is still up and available, which means the TynX could have done a little bit of counter jungling. They could have been able to steal these resources away, get another ward down or 2, and then also offered protection for Blue to actually push out this wave. But here, Blue had to take a bit of a risk pushing that wave out because he didn't have the support of his team. They were all resetting, which means that this split push can be harder to execute. You've got to make sure that your team is playing around where you do have pressure on the map, and yeah, a bit of a risky situation there for SK. Fortunately for them, no punish came through from the side of Vitality.
And it feels, it's kind of a weird game state, Vedius, and please, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it feels like both teams are just willingly catching waves, throwing them back to their opposition. The opposition then says, okay, well, we'll clear out these many waves and we'll throw them back to you. And I kind of want to set expectations as to what are these teams likely to be trying to do in the next few minutes?
Well, nothing.
Okay, cool. I mean, that's an expectation. It's just I want to know that I shouldn't get excited.
But it's a good point, and I'll use this very brief moment to educate.
Now you can.
Now I can.
They brought down the lower third.
Okay, cool. So this is a great example. What we're seeing right now is, so what they want to do is they want to gain control over the top side. So he wants to push in top, but to do that, they need to move into the enemy jungle. So ideally, you want to be threatening mid, and then move into top river, and then be able to, ooh, hang on a second.
Crownshot diving onto Blue, uses the cleanse immediately, and Skeanz is there as well. Blue really has nowhere to go. Milica shuffles in, Crownshot gets the kill. And as SK were trying to get the push in the top lane, Vitality strike.
So this is why I was trying to talk about all this stuff, because when you want to split push, it's important that you provide cover for your split push. Now, you can criticize Blue here, but he walked through an area of the map that he thought belonged to him, because he saw his jungler, he saw his support, they moved into the top side, and he felt like he had control. But instead, he ends up getting picked off. Vitality can now use this to force the Baron, but that is a huge sleep coming in for TynX.
Three-man sleep. Here comes Treatz with the quickness on the side, but Szygenda dives onto the backline. Jezu with the Kraken's Lair, trying to do what he can, trying to kill some champs. We're Kraken lacking on the rift, but he's going to slay the enemy. Double kill for Jezu, and now the chase is on from TynX. Crownshot, watch out, Eep, Crownie's down, and the TP's come in from SK. They're looking for a little bit more. Not too much that you can do when Jezu wants to kill you. 4 quick kills for SK in the top side.
Extremely good fight for SK, which they can now quickly convert into their Baron. What looked like an initial mistake has suddenly ballooned into the favor of SK after TynX was able to find a huge ultimate, which then set up for the Treatz follow-up. And then really huge credit to Jenax. He was really the damage dealer in the middle of that fight, which we'll be able to break down once we get the replay up and running. But we've got to start off by saying that, like, it was a good punish from Vitality onto Blue. He was not in a position where he was allowed to walk. That was an area of the map that did not belong to him, and he ended up getting picked off as a result. So again, you can see here, like, they've sweeped out, but they haven't actually dropped any vision, so they don't have any information on what is going on. He takes a bit of a greedy path through an area of the map that he doesn't have any insight on, and this means that Crownshot's like, hey, I know, I just spotted out the enemy jungler, let's go for this pick, let's get this kill. Then as we move into the fight, we can see here TynX is able to land a huge, well, it was the ball, I believe, is actually what landed onto 3 clumped up members. And then he's like, okay, this is a great opportunity, wait a little bit for Treatz to get in position, then the ulti comes through, and then the 3-man knockup, and you're thinking, okay, this is the moment where the teamfight ends, but the dive onto the backline from Szygenda to keep the Vayne out of the fight, you think, okay, there's no way they're going to win. But then look at the damage from Jenax here. The Q onto 4 members just tears apart Vitality. And then Jesu's like, okay, I can now on cleanup duty. So really well executed play there from Jenax to be able to get onto the backline. Jesu, he saw the pentakill in his eyes, wasn't quite able to get it, but a huge fight for SK, which resulted in a Baron.
And the thing for Blue is, like, he wasn't expecting to get hit by that Void Seeker. He's seen enough Crownie Comets to know that that usually goes wide, but sometimes he hits them. You know, sometimes they do connect. In the end, it cost his team quite a lot as the Baron went over to SK. And they now have a 5,000 gold lead, Vedius. Baron's still available on them for the next minute and a half. Mid tower still available for SK to take. It's going to be a huge Baron power play. There's the floating lullaby once again. Treatz is close, but not quite close enough to go in. Here we go. The quickness is popped. Looking for Crownshot. And won't be able to dive in. Blue still pushing in the top lane here on his lonesome. I think he was alive for the Baron, wasn't he? Because he TP'd into the fight. So he has Baron buff. Vitality still looking for a fight when they can find it. There's the Void Seeker once again. Jezu dodging away with the final hour, but that's some Vayne spotting if I've ever seen it. Jezu with an awful path down the river.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he decided to take that pathing there. Maybe if we get a replay, we can have a look back as to maybe he was forced into that situation, but he didn't have flash. There was nothing that the rest of his team could do. Of course, the bright side for SK is they're going to be able to take that top tower, but they won't be able to break into the base. Now Vitality still have a win condition available to them with the potential Mountain Soul. They still have scaling on their side. I feel like this game isn't quite over yet, Medic.
Yeah.
It did seem like the SK with that Baron were just going to lock in and run away with the game, but let's have a look back here and see exactly what happened. So we're just keeping our eyes on Jezu here.
I asked for us to see it just from Jezu's vision, so he doesn't know that any of them are there.
Of course, but even still, like, I guess from his perspective, he's looking at the vision that's in the enemy jungle, and he's relying on that to say that he's safe. But of course, that whole path right past the rafters wasn't clear, which means that he just walked into. He basically face-checked an area of the map, which, fun fact, if you're an AD carry, you don't really want to do. So ends up getting punished as a result, and it feels like that's been a lot of this game. Both members from both sides walking into areas of the map that don't really belong to them, and they end up getting picked off. So it's kind of why we've seen these kind of weird stalemate situations result a lot of the time. And SK, they were able to get a decent amount off the back of that Baron. You can see that their gold lead is quite comfortably 6k ahead. They are very strong. 3 items completed for both the Ryze and the Vayne, so they're still in a great position. But that doesn't mean Crownshot doesn't do any damage. Level 13, 3 items completed for him as well. And so Vitality, with that final dragon on the horizon, could be their way back into this game.
Yeah, it feels like that gold lead becomes less and less substantial and less significant as the game goes on. Milica's now ticked over to level 60 and is sitting on that Liandry's Nash's Tooth combo. Like, if the Azir gets a bit of time just to get some auto attacks down in a fight, put the soldiers in the right position, Vitality can easily win out on a team fight. And now they have a clock for it. They know that in 3 minutes' time, SK are very likely to face them at this Mountain Drake because, I mean, Mountain Drake isn't the best soul to have in the world, but that shield can get pretty meaty.
But I think that in a front-to-back team fight, that's kind of the best-case scenario for Vitality.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think
that's what I'm saying. It's like they know there's going to be a team fight, which is nice for them.
Yeah, correct. I think we are in agreement.
Cool. It's not often that happens.
That doesn't, actually. Except for medical facts, where I just kind of assume that you're...
Yeah, I make most of those up as here comes the engage from Jenax trying to dive in. There's Treatz, double charm on the backline. The encore doesn't do too much as the explosive cast will knock them away, but Skeanz is already dead and Crownshot is sure to follow. Jezu gets a double. He's looking for more. He's looking for 3 at least, but Blue will steal it away from him under his waiting arms. Realm Warp in, shuffled out, and Milica actually has a little moment here to do quite a lot of damage. The Sun Disc is down, but Milica chased underneath his own tower, pops the stopwatch. Blue now tanking. Milica goes down, and it's a 5-for-1 in favor of SK.
And that is an ace in favor of SK. The team fight that we thought they weren't looking for ends up going so cleanly in their favor. And now with the Nexus in their eyes, they could look to try and end the game. 13 seconds on Skeanz means that he will likely be back up. The question is, will SK take the gamble? Will they try to end things right here, right now? Or will they take the victory, take parts of the base? And it looks like for now, they will just take this small victory and back away.
Yeah, reset for the Baron. 30 seconds on it if they want it, and we'll see once again. This is Jenax just going ham on Crownshot.
So Treatz, who's in behind, sets up a nice flank. I love the flash in from Jenax into the knockup, which then gives them the crowd control rather that they need to allow Jezu to work with his team to be able to shut down both Skeanz and Crownshot. And then with the members dead, it's an easy cleanup for the rest of SK. The Realm Warp flank prevents any escaping members from the side of Vitality, and again, just a positional error, one could argue. I mean, I think we should give more credit to Jenax there, because he sees the situation where, like, hey, Crownshot is just a little overextended. If I flash in, can you follow up? And there's the rest of SK immediately to support him.
I think we need to give credit to SK just for being willing to take those fights. Like, you look at the Baron fight, it was TynX landing a 3-man sleep into Treatz flanking immediately in with the quickness there. It's Jenax flashing in with the Ruthless Predator, cleanse, flash away, and once again we see Jenax going in on the front line, and SK so willing, so coordinated to take these fights. Considering 4 of these players are new this season, it is a sight to behold. Realm Warp out as SK turn their eyes back towards the Baron.
Vitality, though, still want to contest, but look at how quickly this Baron dies.
Okay, we've got Encore, though, Vedius. We've got the Emperor's Divide. Like, if Vitality, even if they lose the Baron, if they can find a good position with Szygenda going in with the explosive cast, Vitality could be out to find the fight. Killer Instinct onto the backline. Crownshot immediately chimed up, and Crownshot dives into his demise. Is immediately burst. Blue's just 1v2ing, and Vitality, they looked for a little bit of a fight, but they just couldn't find it. Cleaned up once again, and that will be the game.
Vitality went for a desperation play. They knew the game was all but lost, and they had to try something before the game was completely over. They went for the team fight. It didn't pan out. SK tear Vitality apart, and now they will secure themselves their 4th win of the split.
Halfway through the split, SK still very much in contention for playoffs.
pretty slow start to the game with a couple picks coming back and forth, but with some pretty intense fights that SK was able to come out ahead of in pretty much every single situation. Huge props to SK. You can see Jezu clearly very comfortable when he gets his hands on the Vayne, but want to give a lot of credit to Jenax. I think that he played a lot of these fights extremely well. I think that he worked very well with TynX to be able to set up flanks and kind of set up his team for success, but it surprised me how much damage he was able to dish in these fights, especially when Renekton should often struggle to get onto the backline with all their disengage tools available to them, but very well executed from them. And yeah, SK definitely a mixed bag, I think, in the first half of the split, but very much what you'd expect from a team of very young players, and I think that they should be very happy with how they've been able to end the first half of the split. Hopefully they've been able to learn a lot. They can surprise a couple teams moving into the second half, and as you rightly said, that playoff spot is still very much within their grasp.
It definitely is, and if you want to vote for one of those SK players, at LEC on Twitter, Jenax, TynX, and Jezu are your options. Treatz played really well. You can't vote for its supports, please. Yesterday, Magic Felix brought hope to Astralis fans, and today they look for a 2-0 week against Misfits Gaming. Also, MSI champ Promisecue. Woo! Supports.
Stop!
They are out there, waiting to be discovered. Some of them are big, and some of them are small. But that's the thing with ideas. They don't just come to you. To find them, you have to move. Kia, movement that inspires.
Systems are overloading. We can't risk another game.
We need to take a break and regroup.
We're starting to lose our mind. Captain, we cannot go back to Elo Hell. Last time it took us months to get out of it.
Initiate break protocol.
Hurry up! Yes! Yes! I did it! We did it! We did it!
Even the biggest champ needs a break.
Welcome back to the LEC as SK Gaming bounced back from their game yesterday, and I have Jesu with me to talk about this victory. Hi, Jesu.
Hi, Laure.
We will leave the game itself to the experts for the post-game, but I have one quick question for you. It seems like Vitality were trying a lot of stuff, especially in the early game, but they were never successful in doing so. How was the game on your end, and how did you prevent them from doing anything, basically?
I mean, for us, the game looked pretty straightforward. Like, we had a clear plan, but we haven't been playing the best we could, so we gave them a lot of space, I feel like, but we had a scaling team as well, so it was actually fine because we had Vayne, we had Ryze, so we still let them play, but it was still okay, you know?
Okay, give me some specifics here. What would you have done differently?
Honestly, I don't know. I think we kind of misplayed because I'm not supposed to be 30 CS behind in lane, even though I should be a bit behind, but not that much. And I think we took some fight that we didn't play properly the fight, but overall we managed to come back and to keep it up. So, and after that it was fine.
All right, 30 CS behind, but I know that you like your Vayne. It's a pick that you cherish, really. You get to play it often in solo queue, but not often in competition. And this Vayne today got you the player of the game, Jesu. You're one of the few players who actually plays in the LEC. Yeah, so tell me about your performance and these team fights you missed, according to you.
I'm always really happy to be able to pick Vayne. It's a pick that when I have it, I can't pick it like blind pick, obviously, but when I'm allowed to pick it, I feel really confident in the champion. And I think the teamfight were quite well in the mid game. I was able to free hit. That's just one time where I lost myself in the jungle in the mid game. But besides that, it was quite fun to play.
Small misplay in the river, but still a great performance from you, and I'm really happy you get to showcase your Vayne performance on stage, Jesu. Congrats about the game today, and merci pour l'interview, évidemment.
Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
And back to you, Sjokz, for this game.
Very much. Merci à toi aussi. And great to hear from Jezu. He said, I missed a couple of things, but honestly, his team set him up fantastically. SK Gaming securing a win to close out their first round robin. They'll be very, very happy with that. But here, it's not all roses and sunshine. We got to talk about the things that may escape the eye, but that are also very important. And as we get up the draft, LS, you have something to say about some of the builds. Let's start with Azir and his choice of footwear.
The draft, I mean, starting things off, the Olaf is a little bit out of place. I know they commented about that on the cast. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Just because you have Seraphine, it doesn't mean that you should just pick Olaf. And then also, I mean, there's the Kai'Sa too, which Crownshot on the LCS coach streams, he always flames the pick. So I was really surprised to see it come out here. In terms of Azir's build, he went Merc Treads Rush in this game, but this is actually something that we touched on earlier today, where Verdant Barrier would have been really good into Banshees, because if you just go Sorkpen Boots with Ludens, you're going to deal true damage to almost everyone on the enemy team, and then you complete into Banshee's Veil, which has massive upside against the enemy team comp. So going to the Merc Treads Rush, he stunted himself in lane, he really hurt himself, and then it pulls away from Azir's power in mid-game.
Yeah, and I think there was another build that also surprised us too, which was on the other side with the Lillia, where instead of going for perhaps the Liandry's first, the order was different. It was going for Demonic Embrace first, and I went in to like actually see the numbers on it all and try and see like why would we go for that type of decision? And I don't personally believe it's valued. Like if you look at Liandry's, it only costs 400 gold more. It gives you more AP. It gives you ability haste. Its passive is going to deal more damage. I think the only argument that can be made for a Demonic Embrace is that it gives you more survivability. The passive gives you resistances. It also just gives you health on its own, but still, I felt like the ordering was really strange there, LS.
Yeah, I mean, this is just another example of like Boris, like sort of leaking into, you know, season 11. But in reality, you go Liandry's is 400 more expensive, and the argument that you have is like what you just said. You get a little bit more you get HP and you get some resistances because of Demonic's passive. But the thing is that for 900 gold, you basically get the HP from Demonic Embrace. But there's no possible way to get the value of Liandry's if you open with Demonic Embrace, whereas you can get pretty equal equivalency if you just go Liandry's first and then get Giant's Belt. So the curving, the order, it just made no sense.
I really appreciate that you two break this down, because I think sometimes it's easy to say, oh, you shouldn't have built this and that, but you're really sketching it and why it is important in the context of the game and how it played out in some of these important moments. I also want to look at the specific replay that you requested in terms of the Rift Herald, if you remember, before we show it. Harking back to, oh no, ruined. You talked about this earlier.
No, so this is actually not the second Herald, but the first rather. And because of this ward on the top side of the map, TynX is seen starting up the Herald. And if you actually were to pan down and look at what's going on in the bottom lane, is the lane is pushing against Vitality. Skeanz is down here, so what can Jesu and Treatz do? They don't have good ranged wave clear or anything less like this, so they cannot break the freeze. With a cannon minion there, there's absolutely no chance. So they're forced to play, you know, from quite a distance. And because it's also a range support, they can't even approach the wave because they get poked out.
And the other thing about this is when you're doing the Rift Herald right here, you notice that all of his camps are up as well. And when you're trying to rush towards the level 9 breakpoint for the 35% increased EXP in the jungle, it doesn't make any sense. You're just stifling yourself. Your bot lane gets reduced amount of EXP, or not reduced, they get denied that EXP, they get denied some gold because you're not there to help them. And then you just actually set yourself behind in the jungle against the Olaf. Nothing made any sense about it, and he just stifles himself so hard for no reason.
And I think another thing that people maybe don't take into consideration when it's like, what's the value of Herald versus other things on the map is, turret plates are one of the only sources of gold in League of Legends that do not come tethered to EXP. So you might get 360 gold off of a couple of turret plates, but that's by itself. 360 gold from turret plates is worth less than 360 gold from minions because there is not that source of EXP. And I think that people don't appreciate that because the number doesn't pop up and you don't use EXP to buy items, but it's very important.
And unless you sketched earlier in ReadyCheck how teams across the world are making this mistake in the second Herald, do you think it's as prevalent in the first Herald and they're making those trades too often and losing too much for it?
I think second Herald in general is usually a pretty big blunder if you're going to have a team fight around it, but if you're getting it for free, then it's fine. I think first Herald, again, you have to really pull out a calculator, and I think the reason that it feels so good is because in solo queue, you get it for free, and so this leads you to having this dopamine kick where it feels nice, and in solo queue, accelerating, getting ahead, translates to leads and wins a lot more easily than something, say, like in competitive, where space advantage is a lot harder and more difficult to define. So you end up getting it, you stunt yourself here, and it just creates more problems, but it's that magical thinking versus scientifical thinking where pro players often end up getting lost, and that's why we see things like Herald mistakes, itemization mistakes, and things of that nature.
Let's also highlight some of the positive here for SK. As said, they really rallied behind their Vayne to make sure that it was set up for success. And we saw multiple multi-man sleeps out of the Lillia and an immediate follow-up by SK, and that was just really, really nice to watch.
Yeah, and this Baron fight that really just spun the game out of control, it started off with Crownshot getting a pick onto blue, but then of course you're going to see TynX from Overall gets the 3-man sleep, and a lot of people are going to be like, wow, the 3-man sleep, it's crazy. It's really good here. The follow-up from Rakan is also great, but I'm sorry to do this to you, LS. The Renekton follow-up after this, the front line was just really difficult for Vitality to deal with. You can see he pops the Dominus, and then after this charm, he just eats 5 people. The multi-man Q Gore Drinker, he just got like 13 different added health bars because of that combo.
Well, it was definitely looking like Godzilla right there. But honestly, I have no idea what Vitality were thinking in this. And I mean, this is kind of, I think the community is going to be a little bit harsh here on Crownshot because Crownshot is supposed to be the shot caller, right? I mean, this is what everyone's talking about. So who's calling for the Baron? Because it doesn't really make that much sense. And SK, they just smack them. And from that point, I mean, Vitality, they started floundering about identically to how they did in the game from yesterday.
And that is what worrying me a little bit, because this is also something that we saw Vitality last split around, right? Last season around. So it is about time that they deal with these things. But as said, first week, but it's hard not to be over panicked because we're so far in the season already, right?
It's the first week for Crownshot, but it's also the halfway point, and they're struggling to find wins.
Yeah, so let's look at the other team, and a very important win for the side of SK Gaming, of course. Let's look at this final Treatz flank. I mean, he's been so great to watch LS so far, and he showed up again in this game on his Rakan.
Yeah, I mean, so if you look at the mini-map here, right, there's no objective on Dragon, there's no objective on Baron, there's nothing to fight over, and also Vitality were threatening Soul Point here. So the question ends up becoming, you have a bot wave coming into you and you have a top wave coming into you. Why the hell are we in mid lane? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And SK, once again, just basically say, what the hell are you doing? And they just capitalize on them and smack them. And I have no idea what I'm witnessing. There's no reason to be in mid.
Yeah.
Zero.
It's another
None.
three-man sleep, another Rakan flank. It's just caught too far forward.
Yeah, unlucky. I keep trying to pull it on the positive and highlight SK, and then LS comes in and he's like, there's no reason to be there. But, you know, that's why we have you here as well. So now, LS, maybe your final verdict on the first week of Vitality with Crownshot and where you think this is going?
I'm really worried for it because it seems like there is some positives, obviously, I think, with some draft highlights, but for the most part, it just seems like the mid and late game, they're still really overeager. They're willing to jump into things in a bit of a erratic thing. And SK in this game, I mean, I'm trying to reference, they're really good at punishing these mistakes. I mean, that's what they were doing really well. They were in position to just clap them every single time they misstepped.
Yes, they did. Well, a win for SK, and we'll see in our next game if Magic Felix can show off some more magic tricks as he and Astralis go up against the struggling Misfits Gaming.